Yeah, as we started to get into the teenage years and looking at jobs and wanting nice things, I came from a household where it was a household full of ladies and ladies that had a very specific taste and requirement, you know, so I got my luxury lifestyle from them. I'm a massive Louis Vuitton fan, and that came from my aunts. They were fascinated by these bags, and I couldn't understand why I wasn't able to put this bag on the floor. Why did it always have to go on the table? Or why was it always placed higher than the rest? So, you know, getting into my first job, which I worked when I was, as soon as my national insurance number came, at 16, I was off down to a Bromley Centre, which is like my local shopping mall, looking for a job, sending out CVs. I applied for a job there to work in Primark. I think it was $3.52 an hour at the time, I believe. And that's when I got my first real taste of working for my own belongings, basically. And I think my actual first paycheck, I think I went and bought like 4 pairs of trainers at the time, which is like the typical London thing was to have the latest pair of trainers. So the moment I was able to buy my own, even though they were £120 at the time, you know, I made sure I stocked up and had all the new in-style trainers. My teenage life, I had to kind of grow up pretty fast, more faster than the normal teenager. Being the only man in the house, raising my sister, being the only male grandchild at the time. I was given a lot of responsibilities early by my aunts, which helped shape me as a man and give me the core grounding that I have today. My teenage life was, again, as I said, it was a lot more adult-like. I had a lot more responsibilities than the normal child. And that was, you know, that was fine with me. I remember I had a pager, so I had to be home at a set time, you know, and I always used to wonder, like, why are my friends allowed out so late? Why are they, you know, when they get in from school, why are they always out first? Why do I have to do like chores before I can go out to play? And why am I always home by a set time? But it's not until you get older do you realize that these lessons are actually valuable teachings that I used to get from my aunts and my grandma. So I was always the one where if everyone was going left, I wanted to go right. And as I said, I think that comes down to a lot of the discipline that I had at home and not being a follower, trying to be a leader and trying to like push myself to the maximum that I could, even if it was going to mean that I would be by myself. And actually that decision was, you know, echoed by my mum. My mum didn't want me to go to a school that all my friends that I grew up with. So I actually attended a school called Kelsey Park, even though my local school would have been, you know, Forest Hill Boys. She wanted me to go to a school in Beckenham and meet new people and, you know, not be like Jack the Lad in the classroom like I was when I was in primary school. So I went to Kelsey Park School, which was in Beckenham, where I met some of my long-term friends who I'm still in contact with today. And that's where life kind of started to change. You started to get into more of like a cliquey nature. The loitering around shops became, you know, loitering around schools in your little 1s and 2s and your 3s and your cliques. And I wouldn't necessarily say the gang culture like that, but that was your group of mates at secondary school were your gang, you know what I mean? So we'd wait for each other after school, we would get on the same bus together, stuff like that. And then obviously, you know, as you get a little bit older, everyone else around you that goes off to different schools, you know, you break off, you make different relationships. Sometimes the relationships that you had from primary school aren't necessarily the ones that last till when you're in secondary school, especially if you're at rival schools. Things become a little bit different. Even though these are the same people that you used to hang around with when you was younger, you're now up against them, whether it be football, whether it be, you know, now the introduction of girls and, you know, who was the girl's favorite, you know, was it you or your old primary school friend that now goes to a different school? And that's where the rivalry between schools and people started, and trying to suss people out and trying to figure out who were my friends and who weren't my friends and stuff like that. Because one school being in Beckenham, and obviously a lot of my primary school friends going to a school in Forest Hill. Now the distance between the two was quite great. So obviously when I was coming back to my area where I grew up, I was a little bit out of touch because all the kids went to the same school. So you wasn't necessarily tested within that sense, but you had to make sure that you let people know, yeah, I may go to a different school, but I am from this area, you know. So that comes with its tests, and yeah, I'd like to think I passed them. So after secondary school, as I said, we went to college. I did a year in Bromley College, and then I moved to play football for a team called Farnborough Town, which was in Surrey. And then I actually moved to an equestrian school called Merriswood, and that was a fantastic experience for me. It got me away from everybody. I was meeting people from vast different backgrounds, different races, you know, different beliefs, and I had to, you know, integrate myself within a system that was like a little bit alien to me. I spoke differently from everybody else. My interests were different, you know, the way I would conduct myself was a little bit more different. It might be considered a little bit more aggressive just because I was from London, and you know, I was encountering with kids that were from outside of London, where things are a little bit more calm, a little bit more relaxed. And that's where I kind of learned, you know, the London mentality can't follow you everywhere. You know, you have to be able to adapt to different situations, and very quickly at that, because I feel like the London mentality can hinder a lot of opportunities that some of the young kids of today are seeing, because they're not sure of how to adapt and still be accepted as well, you know, because there's a lot of stigmas on, you know, people trying to act like they're from different places and, you know, not being true to what they know, but at the same time, that's where the progression is. So I learned from a very early age to switch hats, you know, more of a professional hat, more of a, you know, homegrown hat when needed. And that's kind of how I got through college. I let people know, you know, I can be quite serious, but I can also be a laugh and a joke, and I can be respectful, you know, and I can follow rules, and I'm not the total, you know, stereotype of a London boy, grew up in Southeast London or London in general, you know, boisterous, rude, aggressive. You know, I tried to stay away from any kind of stereotypes, and especially those, because I felt like it would block my path. After completing my education at Merriswood, I met a guy called Andy Scott. And he was off on an adventure to America, and I heard him over talking about it on the phone, and you know, he was checking his email, and I was like, oh, you know, I was looking for my next adventure. I didn't necessarily want to go back to London at that point, and I kind of asked him, like, hey man, you know, is this something that you could introduce to me? I'd be pretty, you know, interested in looking to kind of get out of the UK. And you know, by his kind nature, he put me in touch with the coach, and you know, we had a conversation about what I was trying to do, about my current footballing experiences. And you know, over the next coming months, I was packing my bags, and I was off to America to start on a soccer scholarship.